onto gaming and generative AI. So if I can please pull onto the stage, we've got Tiago, we've got Christina.
Okay, so this one is going to be about how AI assists in game development. When I say games, I'm talking PC games, console games, VR, AR, anything with an immersive experience in gamification. Quick introduction, I run a production company called Hazmation. We do video games, animated series, and feature films, all using Unreal Engine 5. And I'll let these wonderful people introduce themselves. So, Tyler.
Thanks, guys. So I'm Tyler, indie game dev. I've run my own studio for about a decade. I'm also a professor at the University of Texas in Austin, so I came all the way from where the hop is and I brought it with me. You're welcome. I also have been experimenting with AI ML since probably 2015, and before that I've done generative algorithmic art for years. I even am wearing a Midjourney created AI shirt that I made just for this event for you all. Made a photo booth with AI. I've just been playing with it for a long time, so AI games, that's my space.
That's one. Hi everyone, I'm McKenna. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Final Pixel. Final Pixel is a virtual production company. We create content for film, TV and advertising using huge LED walls in which we create content using tools like Unreal Engine. So Unreal Engine is our tool of choice for creating 3D worlds and
Cool. Hi, I'm Christina Khan from Salamander Animations, and we work in a plethora of different types of animations in about 18 industries, and one of which is gaming. So we do a whole stack of stuff from commercial animation to immersive, experiential, film editing and design. So slightly different angle, but very cool to be here.
Hi everyone, my name is Tiago. I am an advisor and a strategist. The last 5 years I was leading the investment strategy and partnerships of Warner Music Group, particularly their expansion into games publishing, where I produce a lot of the work on Roblox, Fortnite, Sandbox, etc. Most recently I was the VP of Growth at Correia, and I'm the venture partner at Griffin Gaming Partners, an investment fund in gaming.
That's really awesome people here. Okay, so let's just kick off the standard question like Tiago. Like you mentioned Roblox, Fortnite, all the sandbox type games. How do you think like Gen AI is going to help or assist with the production of those games? And I'm not just talking about the production internally as a studio, but like those games are so heavily reliant on the audience, right? The user acquisition. How do you think that's going to make a change?
That's probably the best conversation that we can have straight off the bat. So I'll tell you a little longer story if you allow me. So the reasons why I was passionate about these types of UGC games, for those who are unfamiliar, user-generated content, listening to wall art, but no less, is because I myself was a consumer of these games when I was younger, secret still am, and particularly what I was fascinated about was how users like me in the game could also be part of building the narrative, be part of building the world around us, and be part of essentially developing the game. If you go back to basically late 80s with the emergence of MUDs, multi-user dungeons, that was probably the first emergence of the concept of UGC in building a game, where everything was done via text, and so that was the lowest common denominator on how you could build a game. Then what I found fascinating about Roblox, or more Minecraft was the first one of this generation, was how it allowed relatively easy graphic blocks to be assembling the world around you and creating somewhat determined pre-game mechanics, right? Of course, Roblox still has its own programming language, or Lua, and so that still is a barrier, but Minecraft is relatively accessible to a lot of people. The next iteration of that is exactly what I think you mentioned, right? So Gen AI, which you've already seen the news and the hype of how it's building websites with just prompts, and English language is the most exciting coding language of 2023, how that could be used as a way for you as a user, on the fly, on the spot, within game, to build the world around you. And I'm not talking, Daggerfall style or Starfield style, generative creating worlds. That's still the game engine. I'm talking about the user saying, I want there to be a dungeon entrance here for everyone to see, and in that dungeon there will be 13 goblins wearing Santa hats. That could be done, right? So that's what I find fascinating about this particular piece. I know that you asked me about user acquisition, but I'll cede my time to it.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned procedural, and I think it's a really good point. Like, there is a difference between procedurally generated content in a game and Gen AI, right? Like, with Gen AI, it's so user-driven in terms of freedom to like put text prompts and stuff. Whereas procedural, it's encoded in the game engine to do that. Like, if you've got a card drive, and it will generate the trees and so on, and you destroy a piece of rock or something, it will create a scatter. That's that whole procedural generated terrains and so on.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, PCG was predominantly used to fit more on a disk, right? And generative AI does the opposite. You now need a server with massive A100 clusters to get what you want. It has the precise opposite effect of the hardware specifications, but can give you the same end results, right?
That's actually a very good point. Yeah, that's a very good example. Let's talk a little bit more on like things like animation. So I know Christine, obviously you do a lot of work in animation for all types of clients. How do you feel like from your perspective, like how Gen AI could help facilitate productions in your end?
Well, for us, we use it a lot for R&D. We test stuff out. We've divvied up all the different sort of, whether it's animation or image creation or content copy, all that kind of stuff. Everyone's got a different one to keep an eye on because it's so ever-changing. And we use it internally for ideation, for playing around. For us, it's really about sort of efficiencies and co-piloting with AI rather than, it's more about assisted intelligence rather than artificial intelligence for us anyway. And it's great. It'll never take away from imagination, and I think we'll always need a human intervention and all those human nuances. But I think it's great for efficiencies and just testing stuff out. It's still so new, so we're still learning.
Artificial assistance, that's a really good way of doing it, because right now I don't think the intelligence is 100% there, right? I mean, it's not going to think for us, but you're absolutely right, assistance for sure. Pixels, Michael. So I know you deal with a lot of like awesome LED walls and volume, but you rely on real-time content to be played back pretty much at the high frame rates, right? Tell us a bit more how you think Gen AI is going to help.
Well, for us, I think it's still at a very early stage. I think people here are probably interested to know how real businesses are using AI right now, and I can say that we have, in certain sort of R&D circles, but we're not really taking it to clients right yet, in particular when it comes to generation 3D content. However, we are doing a lot of testing around it, and at the start of this year, we worked with a company called Kubrick that some of you might know. We done one of the first beta testing of their software on an LED stage in London. And I think, we can see the potential with that. It's creating real-time assets in Unreal Engine. However, they're not fully 3D at the moment. These were like 2.5D, if you're familiar with that concept. But we had a plugin, that took us from generative image right through to Unreal Engine. And so the fact that we're seeing this kind of efficiency being added to the workflow from the software providers that are generating these new AI tools, I think is really promising. And that's kind of where we see ourselves engaging with AI is workflow efficiencies, kind of similar to what Christina said, how we build it into our existing pipelines to improve things. Another example is Topaz, which is like a upscaler, being able to upscale images now with AI is again just a really good time saver, and we can build that into our process. So it's interesting, virtual production relies on this kind of extended number of things that all have to line up and work properly in order to get everything to work properly on the wall. And what AI is doing is allowing us to continue to refine that and improve that, and to maybe take away some of the risk in some places to improve the overall process. So yeah, we can see that coming, but it's still really early stages.
I mean, we've had potential clients say, hey, can we just do a quick mock-up of a background? Can you just whack a forest in there, hit the forest button, right?
We're not there yet, but you know.
When you get those clients. Okay, well this is really useful stuff. But let's talk a little bit more now, a little bit away from the tech and more about the people that use the tech. So obviously, every one of us rely on good team members to do the work. How do you think that's going to affect the hiring process? Like when you're looking for a good creative to join the team, and with Gen AI, I wonder how that's going to affect the hiring process. Are we going to expect to see people come in with show reels of images generated from Midjourney or whatever tools, and then we're going to ask what were their text prompts?
I can speak from the student perspective. So I taught a class last semester just called Creativity with AI. I proposed it to the school. They were not prepared for this, and I said, you need to have this in the curriculum. And I teach in fine arts, right? I'm teaching these folks. And half of the students very excited for this class. They understood the benefit. The other half refused to take the class because they didn't want to learn the thing that was going to take their job. And so we're going to see a very divisive portfolio structure of I did use these, I didn't use these. And I think the big thing that's going to come down to it is the declaration of whether they use them, or the few that don't admit to using it. I drew this. Did you though? I know how to look up Midjourney and find that image in the results. So I think at a very early stage, the kind of juniors first coming in right now, the big question is, are they adopting it? If so, are they being honest in their portfolio about where and how, and they're documenting that pipeline? And I think that's actually the best job opportunity available for them right now in the creative space.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Obviously we'll understand that things take a while to be done. Like when making an animated film or series, you have to rig the characters and skin the characters and do weight and then animate it.
But don't you think with efficiencies and stuff that we'll actually need fewer people to do the same work, which is obviously a worry of people coming into the industry. You'll have more experienced people who have got that vision, and they can get to that vision with fewer people under them. So that's going to completely change, I think, the environment, hiring and otherwise.
Definitely. Obviously, running a small studio, that can be kind of beneficial maybe, but what about the larger studios, the ones with hundreds of people and running 5 Marvel shows?
I guess they can do more projects.
Exactly. But definitely, I'd love to know a bit more, Michael, in terms of the virtual production side.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. We've not got to that point yet, so it's kind of hard. But at the moment, we very much look for artists. We've just launched World Builders, which is a new virtual art department service that we're taking to stages internationally. And one of the key things in that is that it's a people-focused business, and that we're actually bringing in people who are, passionate about what they do in terms of digital art, content creation. And one of the key attributes of those people is that, they have to be artists. Quite a lot of them are people who come from an art background or have an architecture background or have a very good understanding of composition and colour and all these sorts of things that come from experience and knowledge of teaching yourself about art. And if you look at any Marvel movie, whatever, to be able to reach the quality level of a feature film, or to reach the quality of some of the kind of the best cinematography requires people operating at their best, and requires the best people come together to do that. And I think that they're always going to be in that world. There will be people that have attributes which lend themselves to being artists, and they're the ones that will always create the best content, whether it's being used with purely from software or not, I think, when it comes to what we're doing. But there is this kind of growing, with Kubrick, for example, again, the kind of growing pool of people who are prompt artists, which is this idea of, again, people who are, and
there's a job title, prompt artist.
I've heard it mentioned. And so you think, well, where does that, or maybe it's prompt engineer, I don't know, but where does that take us? And actually, how different is that to the way people learn software tools at the moment online, actually? Because if you go on YouTube, you can learn how to click all the right buttons to create something in Blender and make a donut. But does that make you an artist, or what does that make you? So I think it's very similar, it's another software tool. They have to learn how to push all the buttons to make it happen. But there's still something, I think, at the moment different and intrinsic, and the kind of qualities that come with being an artist, nothing like that.
Yeah, definitely. How do you feel about that, Christina? How do you deal with artists every day?
Yeah, I do. I think it's that we do need those human interactions for the storytelling, for making it more real, more tangible to our eyes, and not something that feels very remote and kind of a little bit, uncanny valley-ish. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit more now about video game NPCs. Obviously, AI has always been the main. I mean, look, I remember playing Zelda for the very first time, and I really believed every one of those people in the village were real. I was buying potions off. So that to me, and I was like 8 years old, so I really believed it. But now, we have much more advanced NPCs. NPCs that are procedural. But now, if we feed in AI, there's this new tool called In-World, done by one of the guys behind Matrix In-World called John Cater. So I'd love to get you guys, the two T's, Tyler and Tiago, what are your thoughts on how far could we push AI with NPCs to make them more smarter?
Well, look, In-World is a great example. It's a company, if you're not familiar, that tends to imbue, they call it emotion, but essentially just some sort of brain-related activity to the NPCs. Think of it as a chatbot to NPCs, and they kind of came to the popular conscious because they imbued Skyrim, another Bethesda game, with their technology, and so the running joke was that you could finally realize and understand why the guard took the arrow to the knee, because you could ask him that question and the guard could answer, right? Sorry, it's a very late joke. But hey, it worked for them. The company kind of became relatively popular because of that, and it certainly is being used by a few companies out there to just get a little bit more variety rather than having to script, potentially even record voices, right? That's another element, the fact that you, with companies such as Replica AI or WeSpeecher, no longer need to record every single dialogue voice. You can and should record the base training data for that particular actor, but that allows you to have way more diversity in the dialogues, which again, gives you a more immersive experience. And this is purely just on, I'd say, the voice-based interaction or some sort of communication and dialogue-based interaction. There's so many other ways that you can start implementing technologies to improve how NPCs work. So I'm going to blank on the name of this company, so sorry. But the typology company is one that allows you to simulate the behaviors of NPCs and essentially improve them based on the environment in which they're in, so that you can, similar to what retailers do, supermarkets do, to shopping and how you need to program paths. Basically, you're allowing the simulator to run all of the potential paths of the NPCs and make them somewhat more real, more imbued and associated with the environment, and from a perspective of a consumer, make it feel like, oh yeah, it makes sense that they're going to bed because it's 10 p.m. and it makes sense that they're going to this bed because, hey, it's that person's partner's bed, so that's why they're going, as opposed to just having a very specific, it's 5 a.m. and they're still running around circles in the village.
And that's the thing, isn't it? I remember back in the day, if you wanted to simulate the NPC going to sleep, you actually had to physically code in the sequence of them going to sleep and make the moon turn up. And now you can use dynamic weather systems, right? Especially on Unreal Engine 5.2 up there, where you can change the weather dynamics from sun to moon or daytime, just type in the time of day, and your NPCs will react to that.
Yeah,
that's freaking cool.
I want to add something to Tiago's point. I think that one of the things we're going to see is such an oversaturation of every NPC is just ChatGPT.
Yeah.
That we're going to go from, wow, this is cool, to I'm sick as shit. You're talking to every farmer is just, I'm sorry, as an AI agent, I can't. So what I think is going to be the real moneymaker is, again, having that human data, that human written story, that human dialogue to fine tune your models on. If you're using the vanilla ChatGPT as your NPCs, you get maybe 3 months before everyone's sick of your content. So I think you still need the writers in the room, you still need that content being created.
Definitely. Well, on that note, since we're on a high, I want to kind of hand over to you guys to got 5 or 6 minutes to have some questions. So anyone who wants to ask anything about game development, now's your time. Down there.
What's the crossover between Unity and Unreal Engine 5?
Has anyone else got both? fun little side anecdote before I jump into it. Unity in GPT is actually more of a challenge because Unity frequently deprecates chunks of their code, which, just as a side note, you get a lot of wrong Unity answers because they were right 2 years ago, which means they're going to need to start building their own language model that's trained on current versions. But in terms of the AI side of things, Unreal is absolutely ahead of the game right now. Unreal's been working with NVIDIA on a lot of the most breaking edge things. I think Unity is playing a little bit of catch up. After their recent merger with Iron Source, I think there's still just kind of a lot of shuffle going on. So if there's no Unity people here, right? Yeah. Unreal's the place to be if you're doing generative AI at the moment. But I'm sure Unity will catch up soon.
I can jump from a perspective of computer vision. I mean, both of them have incorporated computer vision to a certain extent, even though that's definitely not Gen AI. I think certainly within the AI space. Forget the name of the technology that Unity uses, but they use the ability to generate animation based on training data sets so that you don't have to manually keyframe animate all of the animation. And of course, as part of this last year's GDC, Epic Games announced the MetaHuman Animator, which allows you to capture facial animation and include that into your character.
Thank you, and great panel by the way, thank you. Question around the use of generative AI. A lot of the content that might be generated by ChatGPT or any other generative AI protocol may be drawn from other sources of content. That, for example, GPT, we don't know where it's learning, what data sets it's learning from. Do you have any concerns around copyright and IP in this context?
Yes.
Yes.
That is the theme of the entire conference.
I mean, exactly. I think that there's a reason why we're not giving this to clients yet.
Yes,
So
agree.
there's a point to that.
I think Tiago actually mentioned the best one in the very beginning, the UGC. What I think the easiest use for us is let our users use them as UGC systems, because if someone puts a Midjourney image into Roblox is not held responsible for what they make. So allowing and promoting for that use as a sort of UGC system or modding system, I think is a wonderful first step just to kind of get the toe in the water. That's where I've been experimenting personally.
And just to say that that's something that I believe every single client and partner who is interested in using any kind of technology as part of the procurement process will ask very de facto, very quickly, where did you get your training data set? With this new license, etc.
Yeah, I have a game that's been out now for 5 years that all of the character images are all AI image generation because they're using StyleGAN, which was NVIDIA's much earlier one, and that FFHQ dataset was properly sourced. So that's been around for years. That game's been sitting on the store for years. It's probably going to get taken down now because suddenly they're catching up on this, but these tools have existed. It's the training data that's sourced properly hasn't.
That's it. I mean, Christina, I'm sure you get that with clients, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's, to your point, Robert, we don't use anything for clients because until we know that everyone's covered, we'd hate to put anybody in jeopardy, ourselves or our clients. It's kind of life until it's sorted.
I mean, it's ignited a really great conversation on how the creative industries reward people, and I think that it's great timing now that it's came out at the same time that the writer's strike and the US and everything. It's a good debate to have and to have regularly, and I think that that's welcome in the creative industries within filmmaking. So.
Can I sit there and ask a question? I'd love to hear what you all have to think about this. So it was in the news a couple weeks ago that Blizzard is experimenting with an internal model trained on their own content, and I'm sure Disney's going to be doing it, and Warner Brothers, etc. They have the data to train on. What do you think the future of contracts and employee agreements are going to look like regarding that? Are you going to have to ask for a special writer to opt out of having your content be put in the training data?
I mean, companies are already asking that when they engage in these types of contracting work, right? If you do a procurement work, some of the questions are you going to be using anything that we generate to train your model, right? I think someone on the session, I don't know which one was saying everyone wants the benefit of the enhanced training model, they just don't want their data to be training it, right? So it's kind of like a zero-sum game. Everyone wants it, but nobody wants to commit, so it doesn't necessarily evolve. So I'm assuming that's also why I'm responding. One of the reasons why I'm responding, they're just saying, you know what, we have a lot of data. The big companies, we have a lot of data. Let's try and train them. I think the question will remain is, can they get enough external public data outside of their own data sets to make it not that Disney-ish? You know, just otherwise it's just going to be Star Wars, and then Disney princesses, right? Can you have enough access to the public data sets to be able to train it in a somewhat equal measure, so it's not skewed?
Any other questions from you guys?
So from the front. How do you see the future of play to earn in the light of like generative AI? What's the monetization?
I don't think I've ever thought of that.
Play to earn, right? It's like Fortnite, yeah, sort of thing.
So are you asking in regards to, will there be bots that are able to more intelligently go about and...
It could be ones that are played out. It could be a case of actually people making some things with the generative AI.
Oh, so people using generative AI as a means to, in a non-bot way, earn as they play.
Yeah, it could be ones that are. I was just curious, we had a rise of actually people playing as a job to sort of populate the post down. And how do you see the industry? See that play out?
I mean, it's a very good question. I mean, it's so on point because play to earn is very, very popular. You know, like a lot of these big games, especially mobile games, make a fortune play to earn. But that's with original content, that's original artwork, and it's, you know, even some of the UGC stuff created is based on existing content. If you do a Fortnite level like creator mode, you have to use the Fortnite assets, right? Unless you're using Unreal Engine Fortnite, which is awesome, by the way. But that does bring up a good point, like asset creation.
Yeah.
Right?
I think an asset creation, which I wouldn't necessarily call play to earn, that's more...
For play to earn.
Yeah, I'd say so. Then yes, I would imagine that, for example, the Roblox marketplace might be becoming inundated with generative AI created designs, even if on the 2D side, because on the 3D side they have quite specific restrictions. But I imagine at a certain point, those restrictions will be able to be imposed as limitations onto a Gen AI model so that it spits out something that follows those restrictions. And it's going to come down to the Roblox Q&A, which so far has been quite restrictive. It got relaxed a little bit when they opened up the UGC program to a lot of people. And so you might see a lot of those Gen AI creative creation in that marketplace. But to play to earn, I've not thought of the connection between the two. So you've actually posed a good question. I'm going to walk back home thinking about it.
Okay, not all on the front. Okay, I'm going to get to you for sure.
A quick question around, in one of the previous talks on indie filmmaking, it was mentioned Bandersnatch, which if nobody's seen was a choose-your-own-adventure style interactive video experience. I'm wondering where you see generative art and or assets falling in relation to that in terms of gaming, and whether or not we're going to see more of that in terms of gaming, because it hasn't really been taken up on the filmic side. It's still finding its feet, it's being explored in certain areas, but obviously in gaming there's a long history of it, probably a longer history of it, and it could conceivably be easier to deliver in that capacity. So, yeah, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's back to the thing we said earlier, is the fear of copyright not going in your way. Already in Japan, the watermarking in China is like, why risk it on final product art? Use it for concept, use it for crypto. You know, use ChatGPT to help you work out some code. But if those final assets are obviously AI and things turn wrong, you know, just burn the whole project. Especially if you're relying on the breadth of content that only that can generate. Yeah.
Hi, so I'm a producer, so I only care about money, time, and quality.
Spreadsheets.
So you mentioned that this kind of generative AI is generating a lot of data. obviously the data needs to go through data centers and be stored somewhere. You're gathering a lot of data, crunching the numbers, generating more data. So how do you think that's going to affect people's budgets when it comes to content creation? Because someone needs to pay for these servers, right?
Well, if you create efficiencies, then it's going to, be more profitable from that perspective. Yeah, it's still early days to give you a concrete answer, to be fair.
I mean, 100 terabytes a month is still cheaper than one more artist per month. So if we're talking purely bottom line, if it's that's your only interest, data's cheaper.
Is someone here from AWS? Because that's probably an interesting relationship to have right now with any company that's creating that amount of data. And I think a few of them, while you're saying yes, if you compare X to Y, the data is still cheaper. I think at a certain point in scale, it's going to become exponentially less cheap. And those benefits tend to be AWS. So I would imagine I would hope that there's going to be some sort of callback to AWS by the community saying, what's the deal, right?
Yeah, I think we're already seeing a lot of companies shifting away from the cloud and going back to bare-metal servers because it's too expensive. So that's why I was asking the question.
Yeah, and I don't know if you want to jump on that because you had a great comment before, but that also poses some limitations on what can you store on device or on server if it's on site versus on cloud, which I'm not qualified to answer, but it's one topic that I've become quite interested in recently because you can't do the same thing server and cloud.
Okay, we've got time for one last question.
Sorry, can I go back when you talked about potentially Gen AI is going to reduce workforce going forward, potentially produce more content. If you think back, say 100 years, the rise of photography was very fearful that portrait artists would be made redundant, which they were. Modern art came along, changed the world, arguably. In your industry, you think about rotoscopers, colorists, map painters, voice artists, pipeline technicians, etc. Do you think there could be a paradigm shift coming from taking away the more mundane aspect of the job to release creativity?
Definitely. I think that
What is
could be
it?
the benefit of it could be the benefit of having AIs to take those mundane tasks away and allow more creativity. And so, if you're needing fewer people for a project, it doesn't mean you need fewer people for the whole company. You might be using them for something else, or help them to be more creative and to think Bandersnatch type environments or what have you, to just use our imagination, because we don't want AI to dumb us down. We want us to be able to, get better and get cleverer, get more intelligent ourselves without I see it very much as a tool to help us. A little bit like when Excel was first on the market, everyone thought, well, the accountants are out of their job now. But that wasn't true. It's used, and still is, used as a tool. And I see it very much as that. So if you're using fewer people in a project, it doesn't mean that you can't do more projects. So it's not necessarily doom and gloom for individuals. It's just, I agree that it is a paradigm shift for business generally. It doesn't matter, what industry. I think it's going to change everyone's perspective for business.
And that's a great note to end this. Let's give a round of applause to our amazing panelists.